Hey, my name's Neil, and I'm the lead developer on the server at Synadia. And I'd like to spend just a little bit of time today talking about the new 2.11 server release. Now, we've spent quite a bit of time on this release, and we focused in three main areas, which are improving visibility about what the NATS server is doing, enabling new patterns for users and developers, and improving correctness and making sure the system is resilient against failures. Now, we have quite a list of new features, and I highly encourage you to go and have a look at the release notes and the changelog to find out what all of them are, but I'd like to call out and introduce 5 headline features today, which are the distributed message tracing, per message TTLs, consumer pause, pull consumer priority groups, and stream multi-get. And I'd like to just take you on a very quick tour about what these 5 things are for and why you would use them. Now, the distributed message tracing is simply designed to answer the question, what happens to a message when you publish it into a NATS system? Because most NATS systems are not single servers. Quite often they're clusters that have got routes, or they're superclusters with gateways. There can be leaf nodes extending the topology. You can have imports and exports over account boundaries. And you can also have subject transforms happening in some of these places as well. In order to use the distributed message tracing, you publish a message on whatever the subject is that you're interested in with a trace header. And that trace header instructs servers that are handling the message to feed back information about what they're going to do with that message or where they're going to deliver it. Now, we've also added in support to the NATS CLI for this as well. So you can just do NATS trace subject, and you'll basically get a printout like doing an IP traceroute normally, where it says your message has been here, it's going to be sent to this connection into this server, and it's going to go across this import-export boundary, basically giving you the story of what's actually happening to the message. Now, this is not just for server operators. This is also for users of a NATS system, developers who want to understand what's actually happening. Furthermore, you can do this without actually finally delivering the message to the application. So you can do tracing whilst also delivering the message, but if you just want to find out where it's going to go as a dry run, you can also do that as well without the remote applications ever being aware that it took place. Per message TTLs are the first time that we've been able to introduce a limit that applies only to individual messages rather than to the entire stream. So today you can have stream limits such as max number of messages, max number of bytes in the stream, max number of messages per subject, and so on. But you can now also set the NATS TTL header when publishing into a stream with TTLs enabled that allows you to age out individual messages after that period of time. This is quite a powerful construct actually, because those messages don't have to have a TTL, it is optional, and they don't have to have the same TTL as other messages that you've just published. Now, one place that we're using this, or will be using this, is in the KV abstraction. Because if you're using deletes quite heavily in a KV bucket at the moment, you'll probably be aware of those delete markers building up, and that can make the stream underlying the KV bucket quite big and quite expensive to operate on. We will be changing those delete markers to use TTLs so that even if you have KV watchers looking for deletes, you'll still be able to get those notifications, but those delete markers aren't going to stay in the stream forever, which will reduce the need for compaction operations taking place manually. Pull consumer priority groups are a new feature designed to make it possible to control the behavior around having multiple clients pulling from a single consumer, which isn't possible today in 2.10. If you wanted to be able to control messages overflowing, for example, from one client to another when either one is not keeping up with demand or has just become unavailable for some reason, then priority groups will allow you to set policies to overflow based on, for example, the number of pending messages on the consumer or the number of pending acts that are outstanding. We'll be extending this functionality more in the future to allow more elaborate policies, but at the moment you'll be able to pin clients and overflow based on these two controls. Consumer pause is another feature which actually will be more useful during maintenance windows because it allows you to suspend delivery of messages to a consumer without the application being aware that something has happened. The way this works is by specifying a pause deadline into the consumer config. So you just do this as a normal consumer update. And if you are before that deadline, message delivery is suspended. Now, this is exactly the same if it's a pull consumer or a push consumer. And when you reach that deadline, the message delivery just resumes automatically. The important part of this, though, is that the consumer heartbeats continue to be sent to the client. So you won't get unexpected errors being surfaced from your client SDKs because the consumer is paused. This should make it much easier to manage deployment operations, migrations, or application maintenance where you don't want to interleave with accidentally pulling messages and processing them while you're trying to do something. And then finally, the last feature that I'd like to call out is around the stream multi-get. Now, this is for applications that aren't using consumers, but instead are trying to pull messages from streams directly. And the abilities introduced with Stream Multi-Gets are that you can provide multiple subject filters, you can provide additional bounds, such as only up to a certain sequence number or time, and you'll receive a batch of messages back from the system in one go, in sequence order. Now, this is the first of a number of batch operations that we will be introducing into the server in the future. Now, this has just been a very quick overview of some of the headline features, and there are still more features to see as well. Take a look at the release notes on the NATS docs or the GitHub release, which is available now, for the full changelog. I'll be around in a little while to answer questions at the Q&A session, so make sure to queue some up. Apart from that, I hope you're enjoying RethinkOn, and thank you so much for joining us.
All right. I see a lot of excitement in the chat already for some of these features. So we did launch a poll here for what 2.11 features are you most excited about? And we've got quite a few responses. So it looks almost evenly split right now between distributed message tracing and per message TTLs. And I've seen a couple people in the chat already talking about how that per message TTL in particular is going to really help with some of the burden of managing KVs. But yeah, we're so happy to have Neil join us here. And so, Neil, first question that we saw here is are there any plans for KV changes, e.g., TTL per key, which of course we heard a bit about, or atomic operations like inc.r in Redis?
So for TTLs, because the KVs are just an abstraction on top of streams, the fact that you can apply a TTL to an individual message means that we can also do the same for message entries in a KV bucket as well. So those abstractions will be making their way into clients very soon. Atomic
Awesome.
operations,
And then how or
yeah,
does the tracing work with key value storing? Can you speak a bit to the tracing implementation there?
oh, so the way that the tracing would work there is it would just show that the message reaches Jetstream at a specific point. It would probably report whichever the server was that was the leader for that stream at that time.
All right, and then I'm looking at the Q&A panel live here to see if we have any other burning questions about 2.11. Overall, though, I just wanted to say great work to you and everyone on the server team. I know 2.11 has been a highly anticipated release. Here's one. Any plans to implement max ACK pending per subject? Know
Not
if there was
aware
any
of that
follow-up
at the moment,
discussions.
but we could certainly think about it for sure. I can see the poll results have come back as well. There's a lot of interest for the distributed message tracing and the TTLs, which is great. Those are heavily requested features. We're really excited to get them out.